The wind swept through the pine forest behind the small Montana town of Silver Ridge, carrying the scent of rain and wood smoke. The sky was the color of bruised steel, and thunder rolled distantly across the Bitterroot Mountains. Inside an old cabin at the edge of the woods, 18-year-old Lena Carter pressed her trembling hands against the window frame, watching the trees sway like living things. The townsfolk said the forest was cursed. They whispered of creatures that walked on two legs beneath the full moon, of howls that weren't quite human. But Lena knew better. She'd grown up here, hidden, isolated, taught to keep silent. Her mother, Marjorie Carter, had made her promise never to speak to strangers, never to venture beyond the pines, and never, under any circumstances, to make a sound when the moon rose. For years, Lena obeyed. She'd learned silence so completely that she almost forgot the sound of her own voice, until tonight. The moon was rising, swollen and pale behind the clouds, and something in her chest felt ready to break. The storm outside echoed the storm inside her, a deep, aching pulse of fear and longing. She wanted freedom. She wanted answers. But more than anything, she wanted to be seen. A branch cracked outside. Lena froze. Her heartbeat thundered against her ribs. She moved slowly toward the back door, her bare feet silent on the creaking wood floor. The cabin smelled of damp pine and the faint sweetness of her mother's herbal tea, but Marjorie wasn't home. She'd gone into town before sunset, and she'd been gone too long. Lightning flashed, lighting up the forest for an instant, and that's when Lena saw him. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, stood at the edge of the trees. His eyes caught the light, silver, unnatural, almost glowing. He wasn't moving, just watching the cabin with a stillness that didn't belong to any ordinary man. Lena's breath hitched. Her first instinct was to run. But then something else stirred inside her, recognition, ancient and wordless. The kind that lived in her blood, though she didn't know why. When she blinked, he was gone. She stepped back from the window, heart pounding so hard she felt dizzy. The silence in the cabin grew heavy, almost alive. And then, faintly, from the direction of the woods came a low, guttural sound, a howl that fractured into something more human. Halfway through, the air seemed to thicken. She knew she shouldn't, but her feet carried her outside anyway. Into the rain, the mud was cold beneath her solace. The forest waited, dark and breathing. Hello? The word escaped her lips before she realized she'd spoken. It was raw, cracked like the first cry of a newborn. The world stopped. And from the shadows, something answered. A shape moved between the trees. Low and fast, the sound of paws splashing through puddles. Lightning flashed again, and this time she saw fur, dark and wet, and those same silver eyes staring right into her soul. She stumbled backward, breath coming in sharp gasps. The creature stepped into the open, massive, and powerful rain dripping from its muzzle. But that gaze wasn't wild. It was knowing, searching. Her heart screamed at her to run. Her body refused. The wolf stopped just a few feet away, its breathing deep and controlled. Then, impossibly, it bowed its head, as if in recognition. Lena felt her pulse stutter. "What are you?" she whispered. The wolf's eyes flashed, and for an instant, she thought she saw a man standing there instead. Tall, bare-chested, a scar running across his collarbone. His silver eyes burned with something fierce and familiar. Then the thunder crashed, and the vision was gone. The wolf turned and vanished into the trees, leaving only the echo of its growl and the pounding of Lena's heart. She sank to her knees in the mud, trembling. The silence pressed close again, and with it, a memory she'd buried deep, her mother's voice, years ago, whispering while she tucked Lena into bed. "They'll hear you if you cry, sweetheart. You must never let them hear you." But tonight she had, and somewhere in the forest, someone or something had answered. The next morning, the storm had passed. The world looked freshly washed, sunlight glinting off the wet pine needles. Lena barely slept. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the faint imprint of muddy footprints she'd left on the cabin floor. Her mother returned just after dawn, her clothes damp, her eyes red-rimmed. She froze when she saw the footprints. "Lena," Marjorie said, her voice sharp as breaking glass. "What did you do?" Lena swallowed hard. "I went outside." Marjorie's face drained of color. She crossed the room in 2 strides and grabbed Lena's arms. Did you see anyone? Lena hesitated. A man or a wolf? I don't know. For a moment, her mother said nothing. Then she let go, backing away as though she'd been burned. God help us, she whispered. Lena felt fear coil tight in her gut. Mom, what's happening? Who was that? Marjorie looked toward the window, toward the distant mountains where mist still clung to the trees. His name is Caleb Holt, she said finally. And if he's back, it means they've found us. Lena's throat tightened. Who's they? Marjorie met her gaze, her eyes full of a sorrow Lena didn't understand. The pack, she said softly. And they'll come for you now. Outside, in the brightening daylight, a single howl rose from the forest, long, low. And haunting. It wasn't a warning. It was a call. And deep inside her chest, Lena felt something answer back. The town of Silver Ridge looked almost ordinary in the daylight. Red brick storefronts, faded awnings, a diner that smelled of coffee and bacon, the soft hum of trucks rolling along Main Street. But to Lena, everything felt like a dream layered over a nightmare. Every sound was too sharp, every shadow too deep. It had been 3 days since the storm. 3 days since the howl. And her mother hadn't spoken of it again. Marjorie had returned to her routine, tending to her garden, baking bread, pretending the world hadn't cracked open. But there was fear in her every movement, an edge in her voice whenever Lena tried to ask about the man from the woods. You imagined it, she said once, too quickly. You were frightened. That's all. But Lena knew she hadn't imagined the eyes. Those silver eyes haunted her sleep, pulling her toward the forest every night like a tide she couldn't resist. That morning, Lena rode her bike into town, her first time alone in months. The air was cool, filled with the scent of wet grass and sawdust from the lumber yard. She pedaled past the diner where old men sat on the porch drinking coffee from chipped mugs, and past the high school she'd never been allowed to attend. Silver Ridge was small, but it carried a quiet tension, like a place that had forgotten how to rest. People glanced at her as she passed, not unkindly, but with curiosity. Maybe even recognition. She didn't stop until she reached Miller's Supply, the hardware store that doubled as the town's unofficial news hub. The bell above the door jingled as she entered. Eli Miller, a wiry man in his 50s with kind eyes, looked up from behind the counter. Well, if it isn't Marjorie's girl, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Haven't seen you in town in, what, years? Lena managed a nervous smile. I needed some paint. He chuckled softly. Sure you did. You and your mom still living out there by the pines? She nodded. Dangerous stretch of land, Eli murmured, almost to himself. Not since the fires, but folks still talk. Lena hesitated. About what? He gave her a look, cautious, measuring. You mean your mama never told you? Before she could answer, the door opened behind her. The air shifted. A tall figure stepped in, broad shoulders beneath a dark jacket, rein still clinging to his hair. He moved with quiet confidence, like someone who didn't ask for space but owned it anyway. Lena turned and her breath caught. Silver eyes, not imagined. Not human. He met her gaze briefly, and something ancient flickered between them. Recognition, hunger, warning. Then he looked away, speaking low to Eli. Got that shipment of feed? His voice was deep, roughened by something that wasn't quite fatigue. Eli nodded quickly. Out back. You can load it yourself. The man nodded once and walked toward the storage area. But as he passed Lena, he slowed just enough for her to hear him whisper, so softly it might have been the wind. You shouldn't be here. Her pulse quickened. She turned, but he was already gone. That night Lena couldn't sleep. The forest hummed with unseen life, crickets, owls, and something heavier moving between the trees. She lay awake, replaying the day in her mind. His presence had stirred something inside her, something raw and magnetic. She didn't know his name for certain, but her mother's voice echoed again in her memory. Caleb Holt. The name felt both strange and familiar, like it belonged to her somehow. Near midnight, the air shifted again, that same thick stillness she'd felt before the storm. She rose from bed and looked out the window. The moon was waning, silver light spilling over the pines. And there, at the forest's edge, stood the shadow of a man, not a wolf. Not quite. She stepped outside before fear could stop her. The night wrapped around her like cold silk. Caleb, she whispered. The figure didn't move. Why are you following me? When he finally spoke, his voice came from the darkness, quiet but carrying. Because your silence is over. She felt her breath leave her body. What does that mean? He stepped closer, the moonlight brushing against his face. His eyes glowed faintly, his expression caught between pain and awe. You're not supposed to exist, he said. But I heard you. 3 nights ago, that cry. It woke the bond. Lena shook her head. You're insane. What bond? Caleb's jaw tightened. You think your mother kept you hidden because she was protecting you from us? She wasn't. She was protecting you from yourself. Her heart stuttered. You don't know me. His voice softened. I do. You smell like the storm. Like moonfire and pine. I've been looking for that scent my whole life. Lena's eyes burned. I'm human. Caleb's gaze locked onto hers. Then why did you answer the call? The air between them thrummed with energy, alive and dangerous. Lena felt it deep in her bones. The echo of the howl, the pull toward the forest, the strange ache under her skin when the moon rose. Stay away from me, she whispered. Though her voice trembled, Caleb nodded once. I will, until you can't stay away from me. He turned and disappeared into the trees, silent as smoke. The next morning, Marjorie found her daughter standing outside, barefoot in the dew, staring toward the forest. What did you do? Marjorie demanded, voice breaking. Lena looked at her mother, at the lines of fear and exhaustion etched deep into her face. You lied to me. Marjorie's lips pressed into a thin line. I did what I had to. You said my father was dead. He is. Lena's voice cracked. Then why do I feel him when the moon rises? Marjorie flinched as if struck. Because he's part of you, she said finally. And because I never should have let him find us. Lena stared, tears stinging her eyes. What are you talking about? Marjorie looked toward the woods and whispered words that chilled her. Daughter's blood. Your father wasn't human either. Lena's knees nearly buckled. The wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of rain and pine again. And somewhere beyond the tree line, a distant howl rose, mournful, calling her name. For the first time, she didn't fight the sound. She felt it dot inside her chest. Something old and wild stirred awake. The first frost came early that year. The mountains loomed white above Silver Ridge, and the breath of winter slid down through the pines like a living thing. The mornings were sharp and bright, the nights full of whispers. Lena hadn't slept in days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, silver light, blood on snow. A man's hands trembling as he reached for her mother. And always, at the edge of the dream, the eyes, glowing, unrelenting, calling to her. Her mother barely spoke anymore. She kept the lamps low and the doors bolted as if the darkness outside was listening. But the silence between them had become unbearable. That morning, Lena finally broke it. Mom, she said softly, her voice a ghost in the quiet kitchen. Tell me who he was. Marjorie didn't look up from her tea. It doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. The spoon in her mother's hand clattered against the mug. She looked up, her face pale, eyes rimmed with fatigue. If I tell you, you'll wish I hadn't. Lena swallowed. You said my father wasn't human. You owe me the truth. Marjorie exhaled, a sound that was half a sob, half surrender. She stood and went to the old cabinet by the wall, pulling out a small wooden box, its lid carved with strange symbols Lena had never noticed before. She set it on the table. He wasn't like the others, Marjorie whispered. He didn't want the pack life. He wanted to be free. When he found me in these woods, I thought he was a man, lost, gentle, lonely. I didn't know what he really was until it was too late. Lena leaned closer. What was he? Marjorie met her eyes. An alpha, the leader of the Holt pack. Lena froze. Caleb's pack. Her mother nodded. Caleb Holt is his son. The word struck like thunder. Lena's heart pounded. That means... Yes, Marjorie said softly. Caleb is your half-brother. The world tilted. The floor seemed to fall away beneath her. No, Lena whispered. No, that's not possible. I know what you felt, Marjorie said, voice cracking. And that's what terrifies me. Lena pushed back from the table, her breath sharp and shallow. You lied to me my whole life. You made me think I was nothing, silent, hidden. Why? Marjorie's eyes filled with tears. Because if the pack found out what you are, what's in your blood, they'd destroy you. What am I? You're the reason the old alpha died, Marjorie said. And the reason the bond between packs was broken. You were born under the blood moon, a child of both human and Wolf. You're the only one who can choose which side survives. Lena stared at her mother, feeling her pulse in her throat, in her fingertips, everywhere. You're saying I'm some kind of weapon? Marjorie's silence was answer enough. That night, Lena couldn't stay. The air inside the cabin felt too small, too full of secrets. She grabbed her coat and slipped into the cold. The forest was silvered with moonlight, quiet except for the whisper of the wind through the branches. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to see him. To see Caleb. She followed her instincts, the strange hum in her chest that seemed to guide her steps. The deeper she went, the more alive everything felt, her hearing sharper, her senses stretched wide. She could smell pine sap, hear water moving miles away, feel the shift of a distant heartbeat that wasn't hers. Then she saw the firelight, a small clearing. Shadows moving around it. Wolves, half a dozen, standing at the edges of the light, watching silently as a man knelt by the flames. Caleb. He looked up as she approached, as if he'd known she was coming all along. His eyes caught the fire, glowing faintly gold instead of silver. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. You said that before, Lena replied. And I'm still here. The wolves tensed, low growls rippling through the air. Caleb raised a hand, and they stilled instantly. She told you, he said. It wasn't a question. She told me enough, Lena said. You're my brother. Caleb's jaw flexed. He looked away, the firelight tracing the scar across his collarbone. Half-brother. And that's only half the truth. What's the rest? He stood slowly, towering over her, his presence both magnetic and terrifying. When our father died, the power of the pack fractured. It didn't pass to me, it passed to you. Lena's breath caught. That's not possible. It's the blood you share, Caleb said. The bond that shouldn't exist. The night you cried out, every Wolf within 100 miles felt it. You called to us. To me, she shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. I didn't mean to. Caleb stepped closer. It doesn't matter. Now that you've awakened it, they'll come for you. The rival packs, the elders, all of them. They'll want to claim you. Or kill you. Why? Because you're the only one who can unite or destroy us. His words hung between them like smoke. The wolves shifted restlessly in the dark. Lena looked into his eyes, searching for the brother she'd never known, and something else flickered there, something that wasn't brotherly at all. Something neither of them could name. What do you want from me, Caleb? She whispered. He hesitated. To keep you alive, even if it means betraying everything I've ever been. He turned away, running a hand through his damp hair. Go home, tonight, don't come back. But Lena couldn't move. The air between them felt charged, fragile, dangerous. Then, without warning, one of the wolves snarled, ears flat, gaze fixed beyond the clearing. Another scent drifted in on the wind, human, metallic, blood. Caleb tensed. Hunters. He grabbed Lena's wrist and pulled her into the shadows. Run! They moved through the forest, branches slashing at their arms, breath visible in the freezing air. Behind them came the echo of boots, shouts, and the sharp click of rifles being loaded. A gunshot split the night. Bark exploded beside Lena's head. She gasped, stumbling, and Caleb caught her before she fell. Don't stop, he growled, but she couldn't. Her vision blurred, her heart pounding too fast. The scent of blood, her own this time, filled her nose. Caleb stopped, spun, and faced the darkness. You hurt her, he shouted, his voice more growl than human, and I'll rip your hearts out. The world exploded with motion, shadows, fur, teeth, gunfire. Lena dropped to her knees, clutching her arm where the bullet had grazed her. The pain burned, but beneath it was something else. a heat that pulsed through her veins, wild and fierce, and then she heard it. A voice, not human, inside her head. Run, child of the blood moon. Or embrace what you are. The trees bent in the wind. Her pulse merged with the rhythm of the earth itself. She looked up, and the last thing she saw, before everything went black, was Caleb's face. Shifting, breaking apart, changing into something both monstrous and heartbreakingly beautiful. When Lena opened her eyes, she was lying in the ruins of a cabin deep in the forest. Dawn light filtered through the shattered roof. Her arm no longer bled. The wound had vanished. And beside her, Caleb sat in silence, his human face streaked with dirt and blood, his eyes no longer silver, but amber, like fire. You healed fast, he said quietly. Faster than me. Lena stared at her arm, then at him. What's happening to me? Caleb looked away. You're becoming what you were meant to be. She tried to sit up. I don't want this. He met her gaze, and his next words were almost a whisper. You don't get to choose. Outside, outside. The forest stirred, not peaceful, but waiting. Somewhere out there, something else had felt her awakening. And it was coming. The sun never truly reached the forest floor that day. The clouds hung low, thick as wool, and the air smelled of iron and pine sap, of something ancient stirring beneath the soil. Lena sat at the edge of the ruined cabin, her legs pulled tight against her chest. The silence pressed against her like a living thing. Caleb moved in and out of the shadows, restless, every sense alive. The way he moved was half human, half something else. He was beautiful in that wild, untamed way that terrified her. You shouldn't have come for me, she said at last. Caleb turned. If I hadn't, you'd be dead. Maybe I should have been. His eyes narrowed. Don't say that. You don't get it, Lena whispered. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want any of it. He crouched beside her. Neither did I, but fate doesn't care what we want. She laughed bitterly. Fate? You think this is fate? Being hunted? Being lied to? Caleb's gaze softened. You think I haven't lost everything too? Their eyes met, and for a moment the world shrank to the space between them. Her trembling breath, his scent of rain and smoke, the heat that burned in her chest whenever he looked at her that way. She wanted to hate him, to push him away, but she couldn't. The bond that pulsed between them was too deep, too old. I saw you change, Lena said quietly. You tried to hide it, but I saw. He nodded once. It's in me. Always will be, and now it's in me too. The words came out broken, fragile. She felt it even now, the hum in her blood, the pull toward the moon that hadn't yet risen. It frightened her, but beneath the fear was a strange ache, like longing. Caleb reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. You're not alone in this. For a heartbeat, she let him touch her. Then she pulled away. You don't understand. If I stay with you, I'll destroy you. Before he could answer, a voice cut through the trees. Too late for that. They spun. A group of men emerged from the fog hunters. 6 of them, dressed in dark canvas and heavy boots, rifles glinting under the gray light. Their leader, a tall man with a scar along his jaw, smirked. Well, he drawled. The hold alpha and his little secret. Caleb stepped in front of Lena, his voice low and lethal. You don't want this fight, Marcus. Oh, I do, Marcus said. We tracked your howl for miles. And then we felt another, softer, younger. Hers. His eyes slid to Lena, the half-breed. Lena's stomach turned. You don't know what I am. Oh, we do, Marcus sneered. And you're the key to ending all of this. He raised his rifle. The shot echoed through the forest. Caleb moved faster than human eyes could follow, slamming into Marcus before the bullet reached its mark. The clearing exploded into chaos. Gunfire, snarling, the flash of claws and teeth. Lena stumbled backward, heart hammering. The world blurred around her, flashes of light, screams, the smell of blood thick in the cold air. She wanted to run, but something inside her snapped instead. Her vision burned white. Her heartbeat slowed, steady and deep like thunder. The air shimmered. And then silence. When she opened her eyes, the hunters were on the ground. Not dead, but still. Caleb stood over them, his chest heaving, his skin streaked with dirt and blood, but he wasn't looking at them. He was staring at her. What did you do? He whispered. Lena looked down at her hands. Faint light pulsed beneath her skin, silver veins glowing through her flesh. I don't know, she said. It just happened. Caleb took a cautious step closer. You stopped their hearts. All at once. Her breath trembled. I didn't mean to. He reached for her, but she pulled away. Don't. Lena, I'm dangerous, she said. You saw it. Caleb's voice cracked. You're powerful, not dangerous. There's a difference. She turned away, tears spilling down her cheeks. Tell that to them. He moved to her side, gently turning her back toward him. Listen to me. You can control it, but not if you run from it. Her gaze flicked to the horizon, to the faint glow of dawn beyond the trees. I can't stay here. Where will you go? She shook her head. I don't know. But if the pack finds me, they'll use me. If the hunters find me, they'll kill me. Either way, you'll be the one to pay. I don't care. You should. Caleb's eyes burned with a desperate kind of sorrow. Lena, if you leave, I won't be able to protect you. She met his gaze, her voice barely a whisper. Maybe I don't need protection anymore. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly, the kind of nod that said he already knew he couldn't stop her. If you go, I'll find you, he said. I know, she replied. That's what scares me. By nightfall, she was miles from the ruins. The forest opened into a wide stretch of frozen meadow, the grass brittle under her boots. The moon rose behind the mountains. Pale and merciless, her reflection flickered in a frozen pond, her eyes flashing faint silver, her breath misting in the cold. She didn't recognize the girl staring back. The wind shifted. A howl rose in the distance, low, mournful, and close. Caleb's voice carried through the darkness. Lena's chest tightened. She turned away from the sound, from everything that wanted to pull her back. She didn't notice the shadow moving behind her until it was too late. Sharp pain lanced through her shoulder, claws cold and fast. She gasped and fell to her knees. The scent of blood filled the air. A figure stepped into view, massive and black as midnight. Its eyes were red, not silver. Hello, little half-breed, it growled. Your father took my throne. Now I'll take his mistake. Lena's scream tore through the night, and miles away, Caleb heard it. He ran until his lungs burned, shifting mid-stride, his body stretching and breaking into the shape of the alpha. The ground trembled under his paws as he leapt. Across the frozen field, when he reached her, the creature was gone, leaving only blood in the snow and Lena's coat torn on the ground. Caleb fell to his knees, his breath ragged, the scent of her fading into the trees. Lena, he whispered. No. The moon hung above him, cold and full, reflecting off the frost. Somewhere in the dark, a single heartbeat answered, faint but alive. He looked up, eyes blazing. He would find her, even if it meant breaking the laws of his kind or tearing apart the world itself. Snow fell over Silver Ridge like slow, silent ash. The storm had settled across the valley, burying roads and trails beneath a thick white hush. The world felt emptied out, stripped to bone and breath. Caleb moved through the blizzard as if it weren't there. His skin steamed where the cold touched it. Every step was driven by instinct. Her scent, faint but persistent, a thread of warmth in the endless dark. He hadn't slept since the night she vanished. He didn't need to. The bond was awake inside him now. Wild and unrelenting, he found the first trace of her blood at dawn, a crimson stain on ice, still fresh. His chest clenched. He could smell the one who had taken her too. That scent of rot and rage. The mark of a rogue alpha, Rowan Vance, once his father's. Beta, now the self-proclaimed king of the ruins. Caleb's eyes flared amber. The snow around his boots hissed as his heat rose. He followed the trail west, deeper into the abandoned mining valley. The mountains loomed like ghosts, and between them, half buried in the snow, stood the ruins of an old sawmill, the place where his father had died, and somewhere inside. Lena waited. She woke to the sound of dripping water. The air was cold enough to bite. Chains held her wrists, iron biting into her skin. The man in front of her wasn't quite man at all. Rowan Vance was taller than Caleb, his features sharper, his smile too calm. His eyes burned red in the dark. You look like him, he said. crouching in front of her. The old alpha, same stubborn eyes. Lena's voice was hoarse. Let me go. He chuckled softly. Oh, I intend to. But not yet. The blood moon rises tomorrow night, the last of the season. When it does, your power will reach its peak. You'll open the gate between our worlds, and I'll take what's left. She frowned. Gate? Rowan's smile deepened. You really don't know, do you? The Holt line wasn't just cursed with the Wolf. They were chosen to guard something older, the bond between man and beast. But your birth broke that balance. You're both halves of what was never meant to meet. Lena tugged at the chains, fury rising in her chest. You're insane. Maybe, Rowan said. But you, little half-breed, you're divine chaos. And I'll use you to end this wretched balance once and for all. He stood and turned away, leaving her in the dark with only the sound of her heartbeat echoing in her skull. And then, faintly, through the snow and stone, she felt him, Caleb. The storm reached its peak by nightfall. The sawmill groaned under the weight of ice and wind. Rowan stood before the central fire pit, ancient symbols carved into the floor around it. The moon had not yet risen, but its light bled faintly through the clouds. He dragged Lena forward, forcing her to kneel inside the circle. The iron burned her skin. Every breath tasted like metal. You feel that? He whispered. The pull. It's your blood calling to the moon. She shook her head, tears freezing on her cheeks. You don't have to do this. Rowan tilted his head, amused. Don't I? The door exploded inward. Caleb crashed through the wood and snow, half-shifted, half-human, eyes blazing gold. His growl filled the chamber. Step away from her. Rowan laughed. Ah, the prodigal alpha returns. How fitting that you die in your father's house. He lunged. The room erupted in violence. Claws and fire, snow and steel. Caleb met him blow for blow, their roars shaking the walls. Sparks flew from the iron chains as Lena struggled to free herself, blood seeping where the cuffs tore into her wrists. Rowan slammed Caleb into the stone wall. You can't win, he snarled. She's mine. She was made for me. Caleb's voice was a snarl of pain and fury. She was made free. Lena's hands burst with light. The chains shattered. The sound was pure thunder. Rowan froze. He turned just as Lena rose to her feet, silver veins blazing under her skin. The wind howled through the cracks in the roof, carrying the moonlight straight down upon her. Her voice came out strange, layered, echoing. I am not your weapon. Rowan lunged, and she met him with her bare hands. The world went white. Light surged through the room, blinding, burning. Rowan screamed as the energy tore through him. The power of every Wolf, every heartbeat, every moonbound soul in the valley. His body crumbled to ash before he hit the ground. When the light faded, Lena stood shaking, her breath ragged. Caleb staggered toward her, blood running down his temple. You did it, he whispered. She looked at him, her eyes still faintly glowing. No, we did. He reached for her, hesitated, then pulled her against him. The moment his hand touched her back, she gasped, images flooding her mind. The first pack, the blood oath, her father's death. She saw Caleb as a boy, watching the fire that took everything. And then she saw herself, the child hidden away. The promise her mother made in the dark. Keep her silent. Keep her safe. The silence had ended now. They left the valley before dawn. Snow fell soft and endless, erasing footprints as quickly as they were made. By the time they reached the ridge overlooking the town, the first light of morning painted the sky in gold. Lena stopped, her breath visible in the cold air. What happens now? She asked. Caleb stood beside her, his expression unreadable. You could stay. Lead the pack. They'd follow you. She shook her head. That's your world, not mine. He smiled faintly. You're half of both. You could make it something new. She looked at him then, truly looked. The exhaustion in his eyes, the quiet reverence in the way he watched her. Something inside her ached. And you? I'll find peace in whatever world you build, he said simply. The wind rose between them. Snowflakes caught in her hair. She reached up and touched his face, not a farewell, but a promise. Maybe one day, she whispered. He caught her hand and pressed it to his chest. You'll always hear me, he said. Even when you think you're free. Her throat tightened. I know. Then she turned and walked toward the rising sun, her boots crunching in the snow. Her shadow long behind her. Caleb watched until she disappeared into the light, and when she was gone, he lifted his face to the sky and howled, not in sorrow this time, but in reverence. The sound rolled across the valley, echoing off the mountains like a prayer. The world felt different now. Balanced. Alive, waiting in the distance. The storm broke apart, and for the first time in years, Silver Ridge saw the clear blue of morning somewhere beyond the hills. A heartbeat answered.